4,000 years, empires rose and fell, slavery, exile, Holocaust, rebirth. The story of Israel is prophecy, survival, and endless war. Here's the entire history. Ancient beginnings. The story begins in Canaan, the land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River. This crossroads connected Europe, Arabia, Mesopotamia, and Africa. Around 3000 BC, Canaanite city-states flourished here, trading with Egypt and Mesopotamia. Then came Abraham, a man from Mesopotamia, who received a divine call to travel to Canaan. His descendants became the 12 tribes of Israel, but famine drove them to Egypt, where they eventually became slaves. Moses led the Exodus around 1300 BC, parting the Red Sea and receiving the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. After 40 years wandering the desert, Joshua led the Israelites into Canaan, conquering cities like Jericho. For generations, tribal judges ruled during cycles of faithfulness and rebellion. The Kingdom Era. Around 1020 BC, the 12 tribes unified under King Saul to fight the Philistines. But Saul disobeyed God and died in battle at Mount Gilboa. David, a shepherd boy who killed the giant Goliath, became king around 1000 BC. He captured Jerusalem, making it Israel's capital. His reign is remembered as the Golden Age, a centralized state that defeated surrounding enemies. David's son Solomon inherited peace and built the first temple in Jerusalem around 957 BC. This magnificent structure became the spiritual heart of Israel, housing the Ark of the Covenant. Solomon's wisdom and wealth were legendary, but heavy taxation and forced labor turned people against him. After Solomon's death around 930 BC, the kingdom split. 10 northern tribes formed the Kingdom of Israel with their own capital. 2 southern tribes remained the Kingdom of Judah, centered in Jerusalem. Both kingdoms weakened dramatically. In 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, deporting its people across their empire. These became the lost tribes of Israel, their fate unknown to this day. The southern kingdom of Judah survived another 136 years. But in 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire besieged Jerusalem for 3 years, burned the city, destroyed Solomon's temple, and exiled the elite to Babylon. The first period of independence was over. Exile and return. For nearly 50 years, Jews lived in Babylonian captivity, but they maintained their faith, continuing traditions without the temple. Prophets like Ezekiel and Jeremiah promised that suffering would end and return was coming. In 539 BC, Persian King Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon and allowed exiled peoples to return home. For Jews, this was liberation. Zerubbabel led the first wave back to Jerusalem. The challenges were immense: hostile neighbors, resource shortages, internal doubts. But in 516 BC, they completed the Second Temple. Though less grand than Solomon's, it symbolized renewal and resilience. During this period, Ezra the scribe arrived and codified the Torah, establishing it as the foundation of Jewish life. He gathered people in Jerusalem's square and read the sacred text aloud, a moment that transformed Judaism from temple-centered worship to a faith centered on Scripture. This shift would prove crucial for survival in the centuries ahead. Greeks, Romans, and diaspora. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great swept through the region, bringing Greek culture. After his death, his empire fractured. The Seleucid Empire eventually controlled Judea, and King Antiochus IV tried to forcibly Hellenize the Jews, forbidding their religious practices and desecrating the temple by erecting an altar to Zeus. This sparked the Maccabean revolt in 167 BC. Jewish fighters led by Judah Maccabee launched guerrilla warfare against the Seleucids. In 164 BC, they recaptured Jerusalem and cleansed the temple, the origin of Hanukkah. The the revolt secured fragile autonomy and established the Hasmonean dynasty. But internal divisions invited Roman intervention. In 63 BC, Roman General Pompey besieged and captured Jerusalem. Judea became a Roman client kingdom, eventually ruled by Herod the Great, who expanded the Second Temple into an architectural marvel. After Herod's death in 4 BC, Roman governors like Pontius Pilate ruled directly. Tensions mounted. Heavy taxation and cultural oppression sparked the First Jewish-Roman War in 66 AD. Initially, Jewish rebels achieved surprising success, even liberating Jerusalem. But Rome's response was devastating. In 70 AD, after a brutal siege, Roman forces breached Jerusalem's walls, slaughtered tens of thousands, and destroyed the Second Temple. Only the Western Wall remained, today's holiest site in Judaism. Jews revolted again in 132 AD under Simon Bar Kokhba. Rome's response was even harsher. They crushed the revolt, banned Jews from Jerusalem, and renamed the region Syria Palestina to erase Jewish identity. The diaspora had begun. For nearly 2 millennia, Jews would have no homeland. Medieval diaspora. For centuries, Jewish communities scattered across the Roman Empire, later the Byzantine and Islamic worlds. Under early Islamic rule, Jews were people of the book, protected but taxed and restricted. The Crusades brought catastrophic violence. When Crusaders captured Jerusalem in 1099, they massacred Muslims and Jews indiscriminately, burning synagogues with people inside. Under Ottoman rule from 1516 onward, Jews had religious freedom but faced periodic persecution. In Christian Europe, anti-Semitism intensified. Medieval Jews faced expulsions, forced conversions, blood libels, and pogroms, organized massacres that swept through Eastern Europe. The 1894 Dreyfus Affair in France shocked the Jewish world. Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish officer, was falsely convicted of treason based purely on anti-Semitism. Even in enlightened Western Europe, Jews could never truly belong. Zionism and the road to statehood. Watching the Dreyfus trial, journalist Theodor Herzl concluded that Jews needed their own homeland. In 1897, he convened the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland. At Basel, I founded the Jewish state, he wrote. If not in 5 years, certainly in 50. Jewish migration to Palestine had already begun. The first Aliyah, starting in 1882, brought about 30,000 Jews fleeing Russian pogroms. They established agricultural settlements with support from Baron Edmund de Rothschild. Life was harsh. Disease, hostile locals, and Ottoman restrictions. World War I changed everything. Britain, fighting the Ottoman Empire, issued the 1917 Balfour Declaration supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. After the war, Britain received a League of Nations mandate to govern Palestine. The 1920s and 1930s saw accelerating Jewish immigration, especially as Nazi Germany rose to power. Arab Palestinians, watching their demographic majority erode, revolted from 1936 to 1939. Britain crushed the revolt, but then restricted Jewish immigration in a 1939 white paper, just as European Jews desperately needed refuge. Holocaust and independence. In 1933, Adolf Hitler took power in Germany. What began as discrimination escalated to the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews. The Nazis built death camps like Auschwitz, where millions were gassed, starved, and worked to death. After World War II, Holocaust survivors had nowhere to go. Many wanted Palestine, their ancestral homeland. Britain, unable to manage Arab-Jewish tensions, handed the problem to the United Nations. In November 1947, the UN proposed partitioning Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Jewish community accepted. The Arab world rejected it. On May 14, 1948, as British rule ended, David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence. Within hours, 5 Arab armies invaded. Israel was outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting for survival. But Israeli forces held. By 1949, Israel had not only survived, but expanded beyond the UN partition borders. The cost was steep. 6,000 Israelis died, 1% of the population. For Palestinians, 1948 was the Nakba, the catastrophe. Over 700,000 became refugees, fleeing or expelled from their homes. Many ended up in camps in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. This displacement remains at the heart of the conflict today: wars and survival. In 1956, Egypt's President Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal and blocked Israeli shipping. Israel, Britain, and France invaded. Though militarily successful, international pressure forced withdrawal. The 1967 Six-Day War was a turning point. As Arab armies massed on Israel's borders, Israel launched a preemptive strike. In just 6 days, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, and Golan Heights. Jerusalem was reunified under Israeli control. But victory brought new burdens. Israel now controlled over 1 million Palestinians with no clear plan for their future. In 1973, on Yom Kippur, Judaism's holiest day, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack. Initial Arab gains were significant, but Israel recovered with US support, crossing the Suez Canal and threatening Damascus. The war shattered Israel's sense of invincibility. It also convinced both sides that endless war was unsustainable. In 1978, Egyptian President Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Begin signed the Camp David Accords. Egypt became the first Arab nation to recognize Israel. In return, Israel withdrew from Sinai. Intifadas and Oslo. In 1987, frustration over occupation exploded in the First Intifada, Palestinian. Uprising. For years, Palestinians threw stones at Israeli tanks, staged strikes, and resisted occupation. Over 2,000 died in the violence. The uprising forced both sides toward negotiation. The 1993 Oslo Accords, mediated by Norway and signed in Washington, were historic. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO leader Yasser Arafat shook hands, agreeing on Palestinian self-governance in Gaza and parts of the West Bank. Rabin and Arafat won the Nobel Peace Prize. But extremists on both sides opposed compromise. In 1995, a right-wing Israeli extremist assassinated Rabin. The peace process stalled. In 2000, the Second Intifada erupted, far bloodier than the first. Palestinian suicide bombers attacked Israeli civilians. Israel responded with military operations, targeted assassinations, and constructing the West Bank barrier. Over 4,000 died before violence subsided in 2005. Today, Israel is a technological powerhouse with a GDP per capita rivaling Western Europe. From cybersecurity to medical devices, Israeli innovation shapes the world. The Abraham Accords in 2020 normalized relations with the UAE, Bahrain, and others. But the core conflict remains unresolved. Key issues: Jerusalem. Both sides claim it as their capital settlements. Israel continues building in the West Bank, Gaza. Blockaded since 2007, when Hamas took control refugees. Palestinians demand the right of return. Israel refuses, violence continues in cycles. Wars in Gaza in 2008, 2012, 2014, and 2021 killed thousands. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a massive attack from Gaza, killing over 1,200 Israelis. Israel's military response has devastated Gaza. Iran, supporting groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, threatens Israel's existence. Its nuclear program remains Israel's top security concern. From Abraham's journey to modern statehood, Israel's story spans 4 millennia. Ancient glory, Babylonian exile, Roman destruction, medieval persecution, the Holocaust, and miraculous rebirth in 1948. But 75 years after independence, peace remains elusive. The conflict that began in 1948 continues with no clear resolution. Two peoples claim the same land as home. Both have suffered immensely. Both fear for their future. The history of Israel is far from over. It's still being written, in negotiations, in violence, in hopes for peace that seem perpetually just out of reach. Which period of this 4,000-year journey surprised you most? The ancient kingdoms, the resilience through exile, the modern rebirth? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more history explained fast.